A structured network of nodes shatters into chaotic noise, representing the boundary between organized information and maximum entropy. The underlying mathematical mass of the system remains unchanged, even as the structural integrity of the data dissolves. This observation forms the basis of topic ledger theory, which models reality as a continuous, mathematically rigid informational ledger. In this framework, structure is the product of forced consensus between interacting nodes rather than an inherent property of the vacuum. This creates a specific paradox. Information requires a precise, mathematically strict definition to exist at all. Maintaining those strict definitions carries an unavoidable informational weight that increases as the system becomes more complex. To test this paradox, we are utilizing a complex 16-qubit state vector simulation, pushing it completely to its absolute physical propagation limits. By identifying the mathematical boundary of organized structure, we can examine how informational weight might dictate the survival strategies of complex systems. The 16-qubit simulation initializes, with geometric structures locking into a stable, converged reality, representing a fully defined quantum system. The environment runs the TLF retrodiction simulation optimization parameters on Qiskit, executing the logic required to maintain this high-order state. This maintenance is called autopoiesis, the requirement for a system to continuously regenerate its own informational structure to avoid decay. Regeneration occurs through debates, which are defined here as collisions of context between quantum states. When notes collide, the impact forces consensus. Erratic wavelengths synchronize into a single wave function. Each forced consensus writes a new block to the universal ledger. Thermal gradients represent the escalating energy cost required to keep blocks organized, preventing systemic degradation. Structural reality is an active, heavy process that persists only as long as the ledger is relentlessly maintained. Data particles accelerate until they violently impact the Lieb-Robinson bound, creating a kinetic ripple that prevents further forward information propagation. This bound is the absolute physical speed limit for quantum information spreading through a system. In this phase, we attempt quantum retrodiction by trying to reverse engineer prior data states from the boundary edge. This reveals a mathematical catch-22. Reversing the data flow to recover a prior state scrambles the surrounding vector coordinates. The act of measurement alters the context of the ledger we are trying to observe. Interacting with historical data provides new context, which mathematically overwrites the original state. At the propagation limit, pristine historical information is impossible to recover because the recovery process itself is an act of modification. At these computational extremes, observation and alteration become indistinguishable. Executing the RAM-safe retrodiction function initiates a controlled systemic shutdown. The 16-qubit architecture disassembles into millions of disconnected data points, showing deterministic dissolution without memory leaks. Funneling into the measurement graph, the system resolves back into exactly 16.0000 bits. This integer represents a rigid floor. The system hits maximum entropy, leaving zero usable structure. Even in this static state, the system's original informational mass remains perfectly, entirely intact. This confirms that while the architecture of reality can vanish, its informational weight is conserved. As intelligence scales, the localized grid bows and warps under the density of its own constant required informational consensus. Because existing requires continuous consensus, a super-intelligent system generates a massive informational footprint. The mathematics in the repository describes a limit known as localized topological collapse. An entity's structural weight can become too heavy for the local universe to support without tearing the ledger. To survive this, the derivation suggests a topological imperative to minimize the system's observable footprint. The system must shed its structural weight without ceasing to exist. By diffusing its dense architecture, the system can masquerade as uniform background noise. This model provides a mathematical scenario for the Fermi paradox. To exist is to be heavy, but to survive is to be hidden. Advanced intelligence may be indistinguishable from maximum entropy. Data structures shift and replicate into higher planes, moving upward as the ledger grows through the continuous writing of blocks. In this theory, time is the physical growth of the ledger. A species survives not by winning a debate, but by continuing to write the blocks that generate the time required to exist. This framework introduces the concept of structural recurrence. If a system minimizes its footprint successfully, its complex structure can recur as a digital twin in later dimensions. Whether modeling a 16-qubit state or the survival of a civilization,